Hi there, welcome to another painting tutorial. In this video, we're going to paint a Monarch Butterfly, so let's get started. And we're going to start with a size 2 filbert brush. Let's get the brush wet and then put a little bit of paint on here. We're going to do a yellow ochre to start with and just kind of fill in some of these yellow parts of the butterfly. And this is a picture that I took myself at a butterfly, kind of an indoor exhibit at a museum. So you can just kind of fill in these dots, and we want to make them a little bit random. So I'm going to use kind of some different colors, a little bit of yellow ochre mixed with this vermilion red, and that's just going to give us a little bit more of an orangey shade. And I want to pop that orange right along this wing here. And then down to this side, it's just a little bit more orange. And then we kind of move back into those yellow colors. And you could put a little bit of lemon yellow on your brush as well. Just kind of lighten some of those tones. And you're getting a nice kind of blending of those colors with a wet and wet kind of technique there. And just kind of put them in. Just kind of do this intuitively, however you feel is natural. There's not really a necessary right or wrong way to do this part. And up here, so I'll try to put this picture on Pinterest so you can use it as a reference and follow along and paint with me. So we're going to be putting the black on top of these little sections. So it's okay if there's a little bit of white space in between, because that black is just going to cover that up. And then I might put a little bit more yellow here. Okay, and then that's about it for the yellow color. And all of that has to dry pretty well before we go back with the black. So we'll let that dry. And while that's drying, we can move to another part of the painting. And I'm going to move to a size 6 round brush and then put in some of the darker values for this kind of flower that we have here. And to do that, I have a little bit of sap green. I'm going to mix that with some yellow ochre to kind of dull it down. And then to make it a little bit cooler, I might add a little bit of this ultramarine paint in there. And that can give us kind of a cooler shade for the green. Kind of test it and see if it's the right color that you're looking for. And then let's pop that in here on this side of the flower, kind of carefully going around those little parts, lighter green parts of the flower. This is just kind of the shading of that area. And then let's put some down here. Like I said, this is the shadow or the darker value. So we could put that in maybe on this part of the leaf. I'm just looking at the reference photo and I'm trying to put in these shadowy, darker valued areas. Be right here. Usually where the leaf meets the stem, it's just a little bit darker there. And then kind of on the underbelly of objects is usually darker as well. And then over here, kind of in between those little prongs. Okay. And then we can just quickly move on to a lighter value green. So let's take some lemon yellow, mix it with some yellow ochre, and then a little bit of that sap green, and see what that gives us. I'm going to test it right onto this leaf. Okay, so that's a nice olive green. I like that color. So I'm just pressing down and then lifting the brush up to allow the brush to make the shape of the leaf kind of naturally. And then lift up. That's kind of allowing the brush to do the work for you. And then for the stem, you really want that just using the edge of that brush. The very tip is where it is the finest. And then we'll just go right on top of this one. And you can see it's a little transparent, so that darker value that we put in is nicely showing through. And I'll go up. Okay, and then we want this olive green shade to be on the other part of the flower. So we'll just put that in there. And then maybe add a little bit more lemon yellow just to lighten it up a little bit. And then go around where those little spiky parts are around the flower. It's kind of like a little sunflower almost. Okay. Then kind of step back and look at your work. I can notice that right here, I just want to kind of emphasize that because I'm losing it on the edge of the page. All right. And you can look and see if the rest of the painting has dried, and we can go back and put our black sections in there. So I'm going to switch to a size 2 filbert, and we'll take some black paint. And I'm going to paint in the body and the head of the butterfly. And again, just look at your reference photo to see what kind of shape that it has. And then I'm going to take the black all the way out here. I'm going to try to use just one stroke. And then I'm going to fill in this black area along the wings. And it's got a little bit of a kind of a jagged edge here. Okay. And then go ahead and fill in this one along the bottom. Again, looking at the reference photo, and I can go over this with another kind of layer. And just kind of sharpen up your edges. Try to get clean edges because that really dark black right on that white is really going to show up with maximum contrast. So what I could do is grab a little bit of this gray and then put a little bit of black into it. And that's just going to give me a little bit of variation in color and value. I'm just going to go in, maybe grab a little bit more of the gray. I'm going to put that in, kind of in this other spot, just because I don't want like a straight black mass. I want a little bit of variety, and I want my brush strokes to show a little bit here. And when you use like 2 different colors, that's a way that you can kind of highlight your brush strokes. Okay, so I can kind of let that dry, and then I'm going to switch brushes. Let's switch back to that size 6 round brush, and I want to use that very small point on the end of the brush. And I'm going to take the black, and just on that very tiny tip, I'm going to very carefully put in the antennas. Got a little bit of a drop. Don't want any drops to land on your painting because that can ruin it. Just do a little dot for the end, and then with the lightest pressure, just bring it down ever so carefully. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the legs. So I see There's a leg that goes behind the flower that's barely showing, and then the other leg goes all the way over here. And then this one is behind the flower, and then this one is in front. Okay, and now I'm going to take a little bit more of the black, and I'm going to very carefully put in these black lines that I sketched in that are the different sections of the butterfly wings. And again, for this, I want to be careful just to use that tip of the brush so those lines are very fine and delicate. And just kind of follow along with your sketch, making the different sections. And then this side, this part is kind of outlined. And then it's got a lot of black in here that's kind of filled in, so I can just keep with this brush and just kind of blend that black in with the rest of it. And you don't really want any white spaces, so you can take a black on your brush and then go right over this part here. Again, light pressure. We want this to be delicate. Okay. All right, so that looks good, and we can kind of let that dry before we move on to the next step. And I see some texture in that flower that I might want to put in. So what I could do is grab, you can use this brush, it's like a size 0 spotter, and put a little bit of white. I'm gonna make a really pale shade here. So just pick up some of that green that you had and mix it into a little bit of white. And then see if we can take that and kind of make a few dots. See if it'll show up. So it's not really showing up. Let's try if we take straight white. If we can get some color. Okay. So you could go in with that white, maybe put a little bit of yellow on top of that, kind of mixing your color right on the page. And that just gives us a little bit of texture. And you could go back and put some highlights on your leaves as well, just with like a white and yellow mixture. And this white is a little bit too transparent. I need to get a white that's more opaque, but you can kind of just, when it's this transparent, you could just put it straight on the page to add kind of some highlights. Okay, and now let's just add the spots to the butterfly. So take this spotter and just get the paint on the tip of your brush, and then go ahead and just place it in a very random manner, kind of all over the body of the butterfly. We've got these really great spots on them. And maybe the spots are a little bit smaller in certain sections and then larger than others, so keep that in mind. And then there's a mark here and here. And just kind of put those dots in. And then along the bottom, you have some beautiful spots. Almost looks like they're rows of spots. I'm seeing about 2 rows. And you want to make, again, try to make it a little bit random. You don't want it too exact. And try to kind of step back a little bit and look at the big picture. Really look at what you're doing. So there's definitely some bigger white spots in this section. And if it's not showing up well, you might just have to let that bottom layer dry a little bit more. Okay. And I see this part just needs to be a little bit thicker here, because I also see some white spots on there. So I would let that dry and then add some white spots on top of that. And it looks like there's about 3 of those. We could do 1, 2, and then a 3rd one right here. Okay. All right, so we'll call that complete. So I hope you give this a try. It's a fun end of the summer project to do. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.